it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hello, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to another episode of Her Success Story, where we talk to gutsy women who are dynamic and are change agents. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Louise Phipps Senft. So Louise and I were introduced for a mutual friend. I always like to kind of share a little bit of the relationship and how we came to know each other, because for me, relationships is the golden ticket to success. As Louise and I had a few conversations and had the opportunity to get to know each other, I said, Louise, are you willing to share yourself, your story on Her Success Story? Because she's an amazing, amazing woman. She's an attorney, a mediator, a best-selling author of Being Relational, the 7 ways to qualify interaction and lasting change. She's the founder of Baltimore Mediation, the first mediation firm in Maryland. She has mediated over 4,000 controversial matters in the U.S. and abroad in domestic relations, organizations, and community issues. Today, Louise has been honored with various awards. You can read her whole bio in the show notes. But really, one of the things that impressed me so about Louise is how she shows up, to be very honest with you. She has had a life that has been full, and as many lives that are full, they don't have all easy moments, and how she's navigated and built her business, never ever losing contact or sight of her priorities in family first. So, Louise, I admire you hugely, and I thank you in advance for coming on and sharing with our listeners what leadership is truly about, because that's what you exude in everything you do and how you show up.
Gosh, Ivy, thank you so much. That was really lovely to practice, hear integration and practice it every day and feel it in this call that we're having with each other right now.
So tell me a little bit, give me a little bit of the backstory, okay? I'll say, let's get started when. We're young girls and we grow up and we want to be, okay? I could never have seen my life where it is today when I was that young girl and said, hey, I want to be. So where did your career and all of this develop from?
Oh my goodness. As a young girl, well, I do believe that who we are is an amalgamation of everything that we have been, from little girls all the way up to old women. And for me, what comes to mind when you ask that question was my grandmother, who would introduce me wherever we went. And she'd say, this is my granddaughter, Louise. She's going to be the first woman president of the United States. And I was, 7 years old. And then she'd be saying it and I was 12 years old. And then she was still saying it and I was in high school. And I believe that who was I and how I thought of myself was shaped tremendously by my grandmother. Not that I became the first or will be the first female president of the United States, but I believe I knew in my heart, and I always knew in my capability, that I would be somebody and that I could lead. And I knew that at a very young age. And perhaps she also saw something in me, but as importantly, it was nurtured by what somebody else saw.
That's that, and it's so true. And I think back to, you're actually touching my heart big time right now. I think back to my grandmother, my mother, and always being told how I kind of modeled my great-grandmother, who was a businesswoman, and very unusual back at that timing. So when did you decide that the area of law was going to be your focus?
I was in grade school when my mother would say things like, oh, Louise will be a lawyer and she will work for common ground. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, sure, I'll be a lawyer, but I think I really want to be an archaeologist. I just had this idea of, digging around. I loved Dixon Mounds. I'm from Illinois, and I was taken to this Native American burial site a number of times as a child, very moved by people's lives and what would be in the ground as their remains and pottery and shards of people's lives. And so when my mom would say that, I think I thought to myself, oh, sure, I always will be, but it wasn't a path of how will I get there. It was just more like, yeah, sure, Mom. But it wasn't actually what I had my sights on. And then as I moved into college, it was more in the background. Again, I never was preparing to go to law school as it was. But when I was fourth year at UVA and met my husband, and we just fell like love at first sight, madly in love. And he was an accountant in the McIntyre School of Business and had told me that he wanted to go to law school. And I said, well, I'm going to go to law school too. And it was just, there wasn't much more discussion about it. We were going to do that together. So I think a lot of it had to do with an early introduction to a concept, sort of just envisioning something myself as myself, but also maybe in ways that people whom I loved so dearly saw me. And then if somebody whom I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, I had that in mind for himself, well, it sounded good to me too. And I think
I want to touch on something here because you're raising an amazing point. You're raising the point of when we vision, when we allow ourselves to create a vision, and it's endorsed and supported by those around us, be that family, friends, that's a huge piece. And it's not to be just, kind of glossed over here, because I think that it's such an impactful thing that leadership is about, because I truly believe leaders are women and men who create a vision, who see vision, and have the belief to actually go for it. And when those beliefs are supported by those we care about around us, everything is possible. And you have proven that.
Well, I have certainly experienced that. And I credit in many ways choosing the right person to spend the rest of my life with. Because when I was then a lawyer in a very large firm in Baltimore and successfully navigating that terrain, I really saw that it wasn't the place where I imagined and envisioned myself. That it wasn't that I wasn't going to be a lawyer any longer, and it wasn't that I didn't like the law per se, but I could not see that I was going to be what was showing up as suffering for me. I didn't want to carry that on. I didn't want to perpetuate that. And I had this early vision of people because of another mentor of mine in law school who had opened my eyesight to mediation. I was so blessed to go to one of 3 law schools in the country that had a mediation course at the time in the 80s. And when I was a litigator in my firm, I realized I was part of the suffering machine, and I didn't want to be, and I could envision that it did not have to be. So it wasn't like I don't like it and I'm miserable. It was more that it doesn't have to be this way. And so I absolutely had a vision, and it was my husband who told me one day while I was nursing one of our children, babies, he said, you don't know it, but you're miserable. Go out and just follow that dream. And one of my law professors over the phone, back in the day, said the same thing. He said, when are you going to spread your wings and do what you know you want to do? So 2 people who cared about me deeply. Mm-hmm.
So you were encouraged by people who cared about you to not necessarily what I'll refer to as play the game of business, play the game of law, with all the rules, that we can actually break out, that we can create our own ways, methods. We don't have to do things traditionally. There's opportunities out there for all of us to create new ways of approaching things, ways that might be,
mm-hmm.
you know, innovation today is key. Yet, how long ago was this? And truly, what year did you start pushing through on mediation and shift your focus from attorney to mediator?
1982. So it's really been a long road. And at the time, there were no mediation firms. People were not mediators as a profession. I didn't realize that it was sort of pioneering work at the time, but I could see that there was something around people coming together and having capacity to talk to each other and work out their own problems. And that was the kind of lawyer that I wanted to be. So, and law firms, that was rather anathema to them, because a lot was about around the billable hour, and we would charge forth, and we were successful litigators, and we would sue, and we would fight, and we would win. And the cases that were dogs, we'd settle, but only at the last hour when we had really sort of taken everything that we could from them, which is a really negative way of viewing litigation. But I think it is a way that's perpetuated by fear and malpractice, and what people think is just the only way to go. And I've always seen it differently. And, you know, even to this day, it is still an alternative for people to see the world as I do, and to choose facilitated dialogue or mediation rather than avoidance or litigation.
I love it,
yeah,
because I strongly believe that so much can be accomplished when you open dialogue with an open heart and an open mind.
It's amazing. In fact, I would say that one of the things Baltimore Mediation, that we're known for over these 26 years, is the tough stuff, anything that's complicated. And actually, we welcome people who are not, as they would think of themselves, in conflict. You know, it's not a huge dispute, but indeed it can be a huge dispute in litigation with many lawyers and law firms, or it can be a family matter, trust in the estates with a number of siblings and different personalities and lots of different bank accounts and promises and fractured interactions and disappointments and hurts over the years. That's our territory. We come in and fairly surgically, but always lovingly, embrace people for whatever it is that they bring, and give them a safe haven for them to be able to dialogue with each other, even when it's the last thing they want to do, to create that safe forum for them. Yeah, so it's still very fresh and still very new.
So what do you see as some of the successes? And I'm not just saying in your career, I'm talking about in your life, as a woman as a whole, Louise.
Oh my goodness. I would say my children, I've always had as my North Star wanting to be a wonderful, fantastic mother. And I'm blessed with 5 kids, and everything I've done in my career, which has given me incredible blessings around the world, has really been to nurture the kind of mother that I've wanted to be. So I feel that my children, who are kind people, they're gifted with talent, smart, and health. They know they contribute. They know they're connected, and they know that they are more than just themselves, that there's something larger than they are. And that feels really, really good that Billy and I have brought 5 people into the world who see themselves in that way. So without a doubt, that's number one. And it's been very nurtured by having a practice that is grounded in relational conflict theory and conflict transformation.
It's interesting. I'll always say there's a laundry list of things parents teach their children that they never know they're teaching them at the time.
At the time.
At the time.
Yes.
when you say you're grateful, how do you, there's so much, and I talk a lot about a gratitude practice, and I'm a strong believer in it. And you as a woman leader and huge in leadership, how do you stay in touch with gratitude for yourself?
Oh, gratitude is my friend. And I stay in touch with gratitude just on a moment by moment, day by day basis, because of this idea that I can walk, I have health. When I get in my car and I have gas in my car, it's like, thank you, God. When I wake up in the morning and I feel refreshed, I say, oh, thank you, God. I come to work and I work with really difficult situations, and I look in the eyes of people and I say, just to myself, I'm so glad they came to work with me. I feel gratitude throughout my being. And I do think it's sustained with belief in having faith in something that's larger than we are. It's around gratitude for something it's a gift to us. I didn't have to work hard for gratitude. I've been given so much. So it comes from some humility and some practice with humility, I think, too. And then it is also a matter of fueling of self so that I can then give to others. And I think it's what others are doing too. When they're grateful, they're able to give to us. And so gratitude really permeates, and it especially permeated in a crisis that my family experienced when we reached out rather than pulling in. And so many people were there for us.
So share a little bit. Life is a journey.
Life is a journey.
Being a wife, a mom, a business owner, a businesswoman, an attorney, a mediator, and the laundry list of everything from, it could be the person who makes sure that our socks are clean at the beginning of the week, to so many little things. But in our journey, we have challenges, obstacles, curveballs, and I know you've had. Can you share a little bit about some of those challenges and curveballs in your journey and how you've navigated? Because I think it's such an example of great leadership, of inspiration, and your heart overflows.
Oh, it does overflow. I suppose the most recent, if we were to start there, crisis, challenge, was one that our entire family experienced together when one of our 5 children, our son Archer, when he was 17, 3.5 years ago, dove into the Atlantic Ocean, into a wave that one would have surfed or body surfed on, and unknowingly hit a sandbar and was instantly rendered complete quadriplegic, paralyzed from the neck, shoulders on down. So no use of his hands or his arms or the rest of his body. And subsequently then drowned in the surf and brought him out. And so the odyssey of in ICUs across the country trying to keep him alive on every kind of life support the first 6 months. And then about another more than a year thereafter in therapeutic settings and hospitals. In that crisis, we reached out. I was writing to my family every day, and I never is a big word. I just didn't leave Archer's side. And just as a little footnote, gosh, is that important? It's something that is part of a new message now. But if you or a loved one or find yourself in a hospital setting, one night or 400 nights, whatever it is, stay at the side of your loved one. And I would say that the gratitude part, it was so incredible for us, came through faith and a belief that not all the wisdom was in the room with the doctors. And we needed to reach out for sustenance from friends through through prayer and through connections and helping me to find other forms of alternative medicine and other forms of integrative medicine and health and ideas, and having to keep his spirits up and alive. And if it weren't for the hundreds and actually thousands of letters and pieces of correspondence that we received and the prayers, I believe that an energy field was created. And in that energy field, I asked for other people to send us their gratitude. And I believe it created, and I believe it could be detected through scientific devices, an energy field of healing for our son, who is still a quadriplegic, but he is alive, for which we are enormously grateful. And I think my practice, keeping family first, even through all the business success, and being a transformative mediator and understanding relational conflict theory, was a complete preparation for what it was that our family faced. And I'm grateful for that as well.
I so agree with you. And I'm not the scientist and don't claim to be. I have a strong belief of sending love, sending healing, sending gratitude. It's something that can be internal as well as external. And as we do that, what is created, especially upon a mass, is, I'm not quite sure how you document on the scientific side, to be completely honest with you. I have seen and heard the impact. And I think that is such a huge learning. So how did you, once Arch was stable, and you said you stayed by his side for 400 days, if I have those numbers correct, please confirm that. How did you then mobilize yourself to go back to business, to go back and be present with the rest of your family, your husband?
Well, it was just miraculous. We stayed in contact with our family through my writings. I would send them out daily just for my family, and then it extended to friends, and then our daughter posted them. And so they became a blog, and they're actually on our website, Being Relational, because the book was coming out at the time, and all the contracts with the publicist contracts got scuttled with Archer's accident. We weren't able to get on the road, but we had this website. So it kind of became a holding container for the writings, and that kept us really intimately connected. And then people, for instance, donated frequent flyer points, and one of the dads of one of Archer's friends, whom I had not known prior, stepped forward, and people were like this. They just did amazing things. And he is now such a dear friend, but he stepped forward and literally became an agent, taking in all these frequent flyer donations, but having to be the travel agent to set up the times. And so we flew Archer's friends down, or wherever we were, across in different hospitals every weekend, to have at least 3 or 4 friends. And then one family member, one of our children, or my husband every couple weeks. And that was a very physical way of staying connected that the writings just can't quite do in the same way as presence, as physical presence. Even without having to say or do anything, or the quote unquote right thing, just to feel that presence. And that was very, very important for how we stayed connected. And then I knew through other amazing, wonderful women, working women, not working women, who were dear friends of mine back in Baltimore, I knew my family and my younger son, I knew they were being cared for. My children were all pitching in, helping to raise my son, my youngest son then, who was 12 at the time and in grade school. But I knew we were connected like that. And I would hear little snippets, that one mom would be making his lunches and bringing them to school to give to her daughter, who was a year younger than he, but would pass the lunch to him in the hallway. and then I'd hear from the school nurse, that she was picking him up to take him to school every morning. And I'd hear from, it was so amazing. The people I just needed to rely upon and also let go of orchestrating because others were orchestrating for me. And so that was another way of being connected.
So what I'm hearing in this is the power and the value of community. And, when years and years ago, community was a very, very close-knit circle. When I was a kid and my mother, we would go out, quote unquote, go out to play. And, one of the mothers at dinner time would call and say, okay, I have the kids. It was community, right?
Yes.
You knew there was a handful of houses. You knew everybody pitched in.
Yes.
Everybody participated and showed up at 100% and showed up giving. I think in society, it's community is shifting, but it's not going away.
Oh no, it is the bedrock of who we are. It is the bedrock of this quality of being relational, because it is all about how we show up and are vulnerable with our dearest of friends and our strongest with our dearest of friends and with strangers. In our case, so many people whom we did not know also came to the fore to help us. I mean, you can't imagine. I mean, how do you get schooling? And we had 5 different schools and construction of our house. And we had to sell, my business and assets to make payments on things that were not covered. And there were so many different tracks of what we needed to do. And we could not do them all alone. We couldn't. And the community, the fabric of that community. One of the things I learned, actually, perhaps it was a reminder, but it was on such a grand scale, seemingly at least one family grand scale, but grand scale for us with its many levels and pathways of complication, is that when you're asking, ask for what is easy for people, like in their lane of expertise, if you will, or on their way, on their fly path, wherever they're driving.
So share a little bit more about that.
Well, it's kind of like you have someone who's really good and they bring a casserole and you say thank you. And they said, we'd love to do it again. And you think, what I really need is to get the lawn mowed. They're not the lawnmower. They're the casserole maker. And then someone else comes and they're helping, taking care of literally I had people taking care of my house while we were gone, because we still had, a child living there, and my husband was doing all that he could as well with the business and keeping that running for us. And so then people would be doing like the yard work. Well, those were not going to be the same people who would then be helping us do the move. When it came to construction. And we had the lacrosse team. Well, they're strong, big guys. They are perfect for moving a whole bunch of stuff for over 2 days, and furniture, and then a whole business had to be moved and so forth. Not the casserole makers. It was just so lovely in terms of the fabric of community.
And it's so true. And it's so true in business and life and everything we touch. Know people's sweet spots and engage them. Engage them for the sweet spots they offer. And, whether it be in a business and in the roles and responsibilities of your team, whether it be in a tragic situation like this exactly was in your family with you and Archer and the extended family there, or in life, know who the people who surround you, know what their skill sets are and their sweet spots are. And ask when you need the support, when you need
it's so
be willing to ask. So before we finish today, what are some tips, strategies, and advice for other leaders, business owners, men and women navigating their ways up the corporate ladder? What do you have? What are some of the tips and advice you have to say to our listeners?
Oh my goodness. I think I would say know yourself. For me, I've spent more than 20 years with an Enneagram community, knowing around body, somatic awareness, emotional awareness, and insights, and whatever practice one might put in place for himself or herself. But for herself, know yourself, your personal reactivity, your growth edges, your fears, when you're at your worst, when you're joyful and at your best. Know yourself. I think anyone in business, and in particular women, because we manage so much, it is enormously helpful to have an understanding of conflict transformation and relational conflict theory, because it really removes a lot of the fear that's not necessary. Some fears are important because they protect us and keep us alive, but they should be pretty fleeting, more as cues. But there's a lot of fear that strangles us and straitjackets us, that it's all built up in our heads, and then our mind sends all these signals to our bodies, so all the alarm bells are going off longer than they needed to. Whereas when you have a good grounding in relational conflict theory, it is softened, and there can be great relief in that for leaders. And then I'd also say for women, for my own daughter, for myself, be a successful woman. You don't need to be a successful like a man. We need successful women with their voices of inclusivity, with their voices of self-knowledge, with their voices of knowing when they can smell when there is fire in a kitchen, or when there is a sour odor around the corner, whether it is metaphoric or whether it is real. Be a successful woman, because women more naturally, from just neuroscience, the mind is relational, and women more naturally have incredible capacity for being relational. And we are in times where relational intelligence is incredibly important around knowing thyself and engaging with other in ways that are inclusive. You can still have differences, but you can still live in a very inclusive world. And it's a wonderful thing when you can lead in that way, being strong and also being open. And so that's what I would that's how I want to be. And that's what I would offer.
And I think it's a beautiful thing that you're sharing. Women and men are different, and they're both fabulous. Own who you are, lead with it. Know we communicate differently. Know we sometimes think differently. We process differently. And having men and women at that's an advantage, not a disadvantage. We shouldn't try to be one another. We should be who we are. I love this tip. I'm going to take this to my heart. So on that note, you can find all of Louise's contact information, how to be in touch with her, on LinkedIn, Facebook, more about her journey, her website. An amazing, dynamic, insightful woman with so much to share, teach, and I'm grateful for you taking the time out of your very, very busy life, because I know you're still all over the place, to join me here on her success story.
It has been such a joy, Ivy. I can't thank you enough, and I think your listeners are amazing women.
So, listeners, ladies and gentlemen, please remember to leave us a note. Let us know what you like, what else you want to hear. Subscribe so her success story comes into your inbox every Monday morning. Till next time, thank you for joining us.